All right, welcome to another episode of Football Fever on Chubba TV, and I'm your host Chubba. And as always, I'm proud to have once again coming back from a little siesta, Stealth Tony Rellas, the best football agent in this country, is here to join us tonight, and of course, Mr. Reliable, our man Andy, the Newcastle fanatic, is here again once again to entertain us for the next hour and a half. We've got a jam-packed show. We'll be catching up with everything with the A-League, and of course we've got that exclusive interview tonight with former Newcastle Jets head coach Robbie Stanton, who's also joined up with Graham Arnold as an assistant coach with the Iraq football team. So that's going to be quite an interesting chat not to miss in the next few minutes. But good evening, gentlemen.
Evening, Tony. Welcome back, Tony.
Well, good to see you, chaps. Good to see you again. Thanks, mate. I'll be off for the next 2 weeks anyway, so just small blessings.
Oh, great. Yeah.
That's okay, Andy. We hold up the fort really well. Don't worry about that. We'll be all right.
We'll be right. Yeah.
Mate, we've got a jam-packed show, but Steph, I just thought I'll ask you something because I know you love these type of questions. Mate, I've been watching the football world social media today, and it's absolutely gone crazy over a women's game again, a women's game, under 16s game, where a coach now is under the spotlight, where the other team now don't want to play and don't want to be in the competition because this coach was always talking and saying to his players, man on, but it's a women's game, and he kept on saying man on, man on. I know you love these topics, but is that where we are today? Should he be saying lady on or something? I mean, it's very hard for men when they come to women's football as a coach. You're brought up with man on from when you're young. Can you believe that this has been the hottest debate on social media today?
Well, there's 6 known terrorist groups in the world, and one of them's social media. That's point one. Second point is that, I'm all for women's sport, and Andy and I have got girls, and as you do, Chubba, in our family. So I'm not one of these chauvinistic, opinionated guys about female. But if you want to claim to be equal in every aspect of life, including want to be recognised as a football person, a sports person of any field or anything, the reality is you can't pick and choose when you want to be considered an equal and when you want to be considered just a female. And this just sounds to me like a day that the girls had a bad brag day, so we move on. That's the way it is. I mean, I feel women's sport's great, but don't pick and choose when you want to be identified as a true sports person or when you want to segregate the gender. I'm just over it. You knew you'd fire me out, but this is ridiculous.
Andy, your daughter's in the women's game. Do you hear your coach say "man on"? Does that bother you as for your daughter or anything like that?
The girls even say it, Chubbs. I mean, my daughter says it. We played yesterday, so and she's at that level where it's I haven't heard anything along the lines of please use a different terminology or whatever when it comes to man on. It's man on, and that's all there is to it. So no, that's just absurd, mate. Ridiculous.
Anyway, right on timing. As always, we're proud to have for the first time here on Football Fever, Robbie Stanton, former Newcastle Jets A-League coach, now part of Graham Arnold's coaching team and assistant coach of the Iraq national team. Good evening, Robbie.
How you going? All good?
Well, it's good to see that you're on time, Robbie. You're 3 minutes early, so that's pretty disciplined. That's what you were like as a player at Sydney, Croatia.
Yeah, pretty much. I was always first on pitch, so it's just a habit. Try to be on time and early, and don't like to be late.
Mate, welcome to the show. Really appreciate it. Welcome home. Welcome back from an exciting, Iraqi World Cup qualifying campaign, but also quite scary at times with what's going on in that part of the world. You and Arnold and Zelko Spider Kalic, Rennie Mawston, and amongst others got caught up in that. You got up one morning to leave and they said to you, you can't leave, huh?
Yeah, look, Spider, yeah, it's the old Sydney Croatia days. All three of us there from Sydney Croatia back in the early days, and Spider was due to leave 11 o'clock at night. He did. We said our goodbyes. The rest of us were leaving the next day. I woke up this morning with a message saying flight cancelled. Spider messaging saying I got the last flight out of here. So yeah, it was unfortunate, but it didn't dampen the experience or the challenge and the excitement and the what I got from going there. The Iraqi people are fantastic, beautiful people, very welcoming. Also, they're extremely passionate football people. You could the level of exposure is probably 10 times the A League in terms of media and social media. I saw that firsthand when I went with Graham straight away. Just from his first interview was unbelievable with the amount of people and the scrutiny he was under and how he managed that. So it was a good growth moment for me to watch it up close and how he worked as well. So really enjoyed the going in there and taking on the challenge.
Robbie, coming from the A-League, conservative, politically correct, any flares considered hooliganism, and you've gone into Iraq that, only has come out of, some severe wars in the last 10, 15 years and obviously other problems. What were when you landed there, what were the big differences that you saw and that were glaring on your first touchdown?
I think you saw they were rebuilding as a nation. You can see that straight away. There's lots of construction going on and changes going on. There's lots of work happening around Iraq and Baghdad and that. So you could see that there was a very mild atmosphere. Like you drive on the roads, there doesn't seem to be a lot of in Sydney you'd have organised the way they drive and that, but over there it just seems to work like a lot of countries overseas. When you go, they don't sort of have a lot of rules, but everything works really well. No one gets sort of angry or upset, and just the way they do things differently. So it was a bit of a culture shock. Obviously, it's quite hot and humid and tough conditions, but I just was blown away by the changes that you could see they were making through the nation and just on our journeys, venturing out to watch games, the way they approached their game and the passion that the fans had and everyone. They were so welcoming to me and Graham and you could just see that everything was riding on qualification for the World Cup, which they haven't done since '86. So the pressure was always there, and you could feel that everywhere around the place. Everyone is invested in the game there. It's the number one sport, and 46 million people follow it. So it's quite big and challenging. But that's the first thing I noticed.
Remember when the deal came along quite quickly, and you guys had to get on a plane within, I don't know, 4 days of, you didn't even have your contracts done when you jumped on a plane. And the stress of Mr. Adnan, the president of football Iraq, was evident. Tell us a bit about the players and how they accept that, a bunch of Australians effectively coming in, a whole new structure, including the sports science and the physios.
Mate, they embraced it straight away. Like I said, I did quite a bit of research in the first 7 to 10 days when I arrived, just to familiarise myself with all the players. We had to put together a matrix list on all the players that played in the most second and third window of the qualifiers, just to get a feel of the players. There was 100 player list that I got a hold of as well. So once we built that, we started to sort of familiarise ourselves, get to know the players from afar on paper, looking at games, so we could sort of piece together who the players were, familiarise ourselves, names, faces, things like that. So when we met the players, we could make an instant connection with them, recognise them straight away, and build the relationship from day one, which we did, which was very, very helpful. Obviously, Elliot Bass came on as an interpreter that fastened and improved the connection straight away as well. So we had a familiar face there working closely with the players. And then once we started to lay down the process and what Graham wanted to do, we created clarity for the players. even though some might spoke English and some didn't. And, we held meetings and things like that to build that relationship, to give them the belief that, because they're under a lot of pressure. They feel a lot of pressure, the players, and there's a lot of scrutiny. So we wanted to make sure that they saw us working really hard to build that relationship straight away. And then once we got on the park, we connected really well with the players and was able to get the messages across quite clearly. And the players reacted with two really excellent performances for such a short turnaround to have those performances. Like I said, they're under a lot of pressure. Everyone is there to qualify. So we made a really good connection there, and they were very welcoming to the suggestions on how we should move forward.
How does it work? How's working in the Middle East and specifically Iraq compared to your experiences, whether you're an assistant coach at Sydney FC or whether you're the senior coach in Newcastle? What are the 2 or 3 glaring and obvious culture shocks that may have confronted you?
Well, like for me, I was tasked with, putting the sessions every day with the staff and that. So I'd have to put them together really quickly and what we were doing, and then write them up, and also did set pieces. So the big connection there was I had to find a way to make it really clear on what we needed to improve on and what we wanted to do out of the set pieces, but also get my messages across. So Google Translate was very, very good. So the words I chose and the pictures that I put up and had to be really clear on what I wanted to do and be quick at that. Ali Abbas helped me when I presented and translated for myself, and Graham and Rene when we had to present something. So that helped greatly. But yeah, that was one of the first challenges is language. Obviously, the environment, the heat is another one. You train at different times, really late at night. So then it throws you out. Players are eating late. So, and then we introduce, high performance recoveries, real personal touch from Chris Pappas with each individual player. Introduce them to, little things like small gym programs just to get them started, just to introduce things and stuff like that. Structure, routine. Just try to, make sure everyone was on the same page every day. When you came to breakfast, we're all in the same kit, things like that. Just not that they didn't have it, but we wanted to make sure that we showed a strong process. The barriers obviously were the heat, the language, and us adapting to the environment and things like that. We had to move quick and adapt really quickly as well to, obviously the religion. Some players are, they pray and things like that. So not that was an issue. They had certain times set up, where the players could do that. We just wanted to make sure that we weren't invasive on personal things such as that. So we wanted to make sure that we got that spot on and wasn't offending anyone. So we made sure of that. And yeah, we just introduced some things slowly, but we had to move quick at the same time. So yeah, there's some challenges, but I was really pleased with how we managed it, and as a staff and that connection we made. So that made it a lot easier. We built some good relationships with all the players and staff too.
Speaking to Arnold and speaking to Spider Kalach, I found it interesting that you guys turned up and there's no mannequins, there's no GPS results. Players playing in the local league haven't been paid, so they're unfit. They're only playing games, they're not going to training. Did that freak you guys out? Did that sort of shock you about that type of, experience?
Yeah, look, it was. It's just you can like I said, when we arrived, we really I hit the ground running. Once we realised that there was some things we had to address, and that there were some changes going to be made. There's some whole new staff coming in. Obviously, there was a lot of work for Graham to do. So while he was working on staff and that, I was piecing together players and making those connections and faces and recognise. And then we go to games in the night time. So yeah, look, it was a little shock, but I think coaching dishes up things like that. You can just take a step back and just process everything, which we did, and prioritize what was really important. And obviously, when the rest of the staff came, we had a really good platform to build and move quick, which we did, and we were able to hit the ground running. But yeah, look, it was a little shock, but at the same time, yeah, in the end, it didn't really turn me off or turn us off. We just I could just see a really wonderful opportunity to be challenged and put in a situation where you're a little bit uncomfortable, But if you really work hard and you can achieve something, there's a really big reward at it, and that being qualification to a World Cup, a nation that's extremely passionate, not only about football and life and that you can have a really positive impact. And as I said, there's a lot of scrutiny there from social media and media. It's magnified 10 times, maybe even 15 times to what we experience here in Australia. So some challenges, but we just dealt with it.
You went into the first game, big expectations. Player gets sent off in the 29th minute. You go down 2-0 to Korea. Tell us the feeling in the country post that loss, and then post the win when you go away and you beat Jordan with a full complement of players. Did you see that the variance was there? Still belief?
Yeah,
between
there
those
was.
two
Look,
periods?
yeah, the players were great. Obviously, the loss was disappointing. Considering the short turnaround, it was always going to be a difficult game. But the opportunity there was to get some good evidence, not only for the fans to see, but the players to see when you have a review and a reflection on that. Some of the things we put in place came to life really well. Up until the send-off, we were probably had an upper hand in terms of we were causing problems for them in terms of not allow them to play. And also, we could have been a little bit better with the ball, but we were doing some really good things, and we were in a good position to probably get something out of the game. And in the end, we didn't. So we regrouped. We flew to Jordan. I think going to Jordan relieved a bit of pressure from the players and everyone being in Iraq, because there's so much scrutiny in that, which comes with the role. But once we got to Jordan, we refocused everyone. We set it. We set ourselves a task. We saw opportunity to add another layers to what we'd done, and to reflect on that with the players quickly and build a plan for Jordan. And we did. And I think it was an excellent performance by the players. I think they controlled the game really well. We pressed them excellently. We scored a good goal, but we were definitely deserving winners, which was good against a nation that's qualified. So, yeah, look, there was a lot. I think out of that game, a lot of beliefs come, and you could see a really clear shift in what we wanted to change, and we got a feeling that was happening as well. So, still lots of work to do, but really positive.
Robbie, you've been at Sydney FC under Arnold and Corica. You went to Newcastle, different dynamic, more or less a development program. How do Iraqi players and Australian players compare? And where do you, people probably don't know this, but there's about 9 or 10 Iraqi players playing in Holland and in Scandinavian countries, etc. Where do they sit in the pedestal compared to an Australian player?
Yeah, look, I think there's about 18 or 20 players around Asia and Europe. We've sort of had a good look at. I think what I see with Australian players more organised, more structured in the way they approach the game. They've had more exposure to high performance and things like that, and training methodology is probably a little bit different. The Iraqi players are very very natural, and they see the game. They want to go forward all the time. So if they see it's on, they'll play a pass, and whether it's a longer pass or an aggressive forward pass to try and release a teammate. The game's a little bit different. I could see that. So when we've introduced some structure and that in terms of defending and organisation in some areas, they've reacted really well to it. They've taken it on board. So there's very very some creative players. Very dynamic with the ball. Considering the temperatures, they work really really hard off the ball. To when they lose the ball, we saw a really good approach to win the ball back. So we liked and really was impressed with their passion to win the ball back and fight and be aggressive to get the ball back. So there's some similarities. Obviously, like I said, the organisation and the structure and the setup is slightly different on that, but you get that in a lot of countries, and sometimes that's a reflection of how people view the game and how they've been exposed in different ways to the game as well. So, but they were very, very open to doing something different. And as I said, we saw some very entertaining games and passionate people at the games as well.
Before I pass you on to the boys, my last question is the Iraqi league, the domestic league, as opposed to the A League. How would some of those top 4 or 5 clubs compete in the A League? What level do you think they're at?
Oh yeah, look there's the top clubs like would definitely be on par and be do quite well in the A League. I think they have a 20 league 20 team competition. Yeah, look, it's there's some similarities. Again, they're playing in 35-40 degree heat, so it's a different dynamic to play in. And what I saw was quite impressive with the way they run and the way they're willing to work. But there are some differences. As I said, the A League's a bit more structured and organised. Both have lots of transitions. The Iraqi League's a little bit more direct. You see a little bit of build-ups, but there's a little bit more directness to their play, as opposed to the A League. The A League's had a lot of exposure in the last 10, 15, 20 years through Dutch and stuff like that with curriculums, and you see a lot of that coming through in the A League. But again, you might get some changes too with younger players getting more exposure, and then I'll see another shift in the A League as well. So yeah, there's some similarities, but there's some differences as well.
It's
Yeah, Robbie, mate, I'm proud to say my parents and grandparents and etc. born in Iraq, of a Syrian background. So, mate, I can tell you the buzz around Australian Iraqis, that you guys were appointed part of the coaching staff there to take over reins and hopefully take Iraq to another World Cup is, mate, it's gone down very, very well in the local area. Predominantly, a lot of the Iraqis, Syrians are out Fairford way, as you know, close to Marconi, Sydney United and whatnot. But, mate, obviously a lot of people are very aware of what the country's gone through in recent times and in the past. And obviously sport and football in particular is sort of what brings them together. And I can tell you from, the Golf Cup that they won back in 2023, and before that was the Asian Cup, I think it was in 2007 from memory. And mate, the streets around here were just ballistic. So you're probably aware now that you've been there how they respond to football and how it is a bit of an escape to them. So that focus of making the World Cup, it's I can tell you, and you like I said, you're probably already aware now, but even locally here, domestically in Australia, mate, there's a pretty big, I suppose, hurdle that the club or that the country's got to go through. But you're obviously aware of that and how much pressure there is.
Yeah, oh, very, very much so. The first press conference I went to when I arrived, I was only a day there with Graham. Obviously, that was his first press conference. I think there was maybe 200 media people. I couldn't believe the amount of people that were jammed into one room. And then that obviously that went viral. Yeah, I was shocked. It's magnified compared to Australia 10, 15 times. Everywhere you go, everyone's talking football. As soon as they spot Graham, obviously they're very aware of who he is. Like everyone's very aware of who he is and what his role is. And yeah, you can just feel it, the pressure. I think probably that's the hardest thing for the players. They're aware of the pressure. Social media is very, very big in Iraq. So there's lots of posting, lots of things happening, and obviously that builds even more pressure. This because the awareness of everyone what's happening. So it's that's the probably the downside is the so much exposure creates a lot of pressure. But in saying that, we're trying to say to the players, this is now is the only thing we need to focus on, and our focus is on qualifying for a World Cup. So, and that's where we're channeling all our energy into making sure that we're well prepared, the players are prepared, we're doing our research, our homework, and that we give every opportunity to qualify for the World Cup. We're looking at every player and everyone we can, and that's really important because you can just see you have a really strong feeling of when we qualify, when I say when we qualify, what it's going to mean to the people of Iraq. You can just feel that it's going to make a lot of people happy and make a lot of people proud to see Iraq compete at the World Cup. And I think it'll be a fantastic thing. And to be part of that is obviously a real privilege. And that's why I could not resist the opportunity to be challenged and put in that situation.
fantastic.
Robbie, moving forward with everything that's happening now, I know they've blocked flights to go to Dubai, go here, go there. How difficult now is it to prepare, and what's happening? Does it just make it much more extremely difficult now?
Yeah, look, we will know come 16th, 17th for July what our next phase will be, whether we're going to be in Qatar or Saudi. So we'll know then. So we have a little bit of time, and once after that date, we'll definitely know whether we're going to head to Saudi or Qatar for the next phase of qualifying, and then it's just a matter of where we can hold a pre-camp, whether that's back in Iraq or in somewhere like Dubai. That'll be the next sort of challenge of organising that. But we still got time to do all our research and preparation work. Obviously, a lot of international is about monitoring players, workloads, and trying to keep tabs on them. Making sure they're injury free, making sure they're getting plenty of game time, because you have a really short turnaround when you get the players. We were lucky in the first time we had. They postponed the comp for a week so we could hold a longer camp, which we were really grateful to do, which you wouldn't probably get in Australia, but that was able to happen, and we're able to bring the players in as early as we can to work with them. So hopefully the conflict ends. It's obviously I don't really know the full extent of the why, but hopefully it ends, because Iraq sits right in the middle, and it affects flight paths, and there's a lot of things going around Iraq. But I was very surprised. The people of Iraq are very calm. They weren't in any sort of distress. When I was there, our minders saying, "No, this is normal. Don't worry, it's all good. It's safe." And I never once felt unsafe when I was there.
Excellent.
Obviously, the Australian consulate was, we just kept up to date what was happening. But in the end, we were ready to go home anyway, because our work was finished for this window. So we just had to go out through Kuwait to come home. But other than that, I never sensed or felt any changes. But obviously, there was a lot happening in the distances surrounding Iraq, which is unfortunate.
Just the last one before we let you go, and appreciate everything, unless Stealth got anything to add. I know your time at Newcastle Jets, you've done a wonderful job. Were you a little bit disappointed at how everything finished there, or were you expecting to continue? Or, I mean, now I suppose you've moved on with the Iraq national team, but I suppose, was it a bit of a shock that you weren't going to continue at the Newcastle Jets?
Hey, look, yes and no. I signed a contract, so I was all signed up for another 2 years, but on the proviso that I could keep and maintain key staff members and that. And so I was sort of that deal had been done, but I needed to make sure that, because I knew we weren't going to increase our budget, which is understandable. The club was, probably two of the toughest years I was there, with the transition and the uncertainty. So yeah, there's a bit of disappointment, but at the same time, I look at it and I go, you know, it could be a good thing, it could be a bad thing. We won't know, but I know for sure that we laid some good foundations. The club's in a better space. And when I took on the role, I knew that things can change quickly at any given time. But at the same time, I'm really pleased and proud of the work I did under the constraints that I was working under. I think there's signs that it could do really well next year if they can make the adjustments. But in the end, it got down to I needed key things. If we weren't going to increase the playing budget, we certainly need to have the right people there to develop the players to make them better. And I just didn't feel that was going to be possible. And in the end, we couldn't agree on a few things, and it ended. But in saying that, you have to accept the good and the bad, and like I said, I'm proud of the work I did there, and I think it's in a better space. There's still a lot of work to do, but there's some positive signs, and yeah, like I said, disappointed, but in the end, this is football, and you have to move quickly, unfortunately, sometimes.
Stealth, anything else before we thank Robbie for tonight?
Mate, we wish you all the best, Robbie. I think flying the Australian flag as coaches, and whether you're Ange Postecoglou or Peter Klamoski or anyone else that goes out to represent our country as a coach, no different to our players, we wish you every success. I think, geez, you've got a passionate job there. You guys are surrounded by 12 and 15 security at any given time. because such is the passion and such is the drive. But it'll be a great opportunity, not only for the Iraqi people in Iraq, but for people like Andy and other parts of the world, because, Iraqi people all over the world, like a lot of other nationalities, and they're very passionate about their football. And I've seen some of the photos and the police escorts, and something tells me you didn't see that at Sydney or Newcastle.
No, we didn't. But again, it's a little culture shock. But at no time did I feel like I was in any sort of danger or trouble. It was just pure passion, passionate people who love the game. I could see a nation that's rebuilding, that's passionate about the game, but also just really genuine people. Like our minders, terrific guys, mate. They felt part of the staff. If they were left out, they got a bit upset because they felt they were really part of. We made them feel part of the staff. They took us where we needed to go every day. We've become friends. I message these guys on a daily basis, see how they're going. Those connections are really important. You feel like and we made that connection straight away. And yeah, we're there to work. We're there to do the best for the Iraqi people and the game. And was really excited by that. And it was hard to not take that on board and see that. So really, really enjoyed it greatly.
All the best, Robbie. We wish you all the best. Hopefully that camps all can be run back in Iraq and prepare accordingly. But I'm sure you and Arnie have got plans to ensure that you're at a World Cup, and that might be the kudos that you deserve after 20 years in the game, mate. Well done.
Good luck. I'd love to, mate. And again, thanks for having me on. Hopefully next time we come on, it's we're talking about qualification.
Yeah, it'd be brilliant. Previewing Australia and Iraq in the World Cup would be excellent.
That'd be unreal.
Thanks, Robbie.
You're welcome. Thanks, guys. Thanks very much. Ciao.
Ciao.
Stuart, yeah, there it is. And like you said, mate, it's very important for all our coaches. They get, like Robbie Stanton, Graham Arnold, like you said, Ange Postecoglou and everyone else and all the rest that get that exposure. And, one door closed in the Newcastle Jets, but this is a massive window and an opportunity. And for Iraq, if they can be at the World Cup next year, it'll be absolutely huge.
Would be, and it would be good for our coaches. It would be good for our game. It would be good for our two nations. I mean, sports and other facets of life, cultures and all that bring people together, and I think that's important. I've seen some of the footage, and it is all about passion. People in the Western society probably might have a bit of reservation, but it's all the passion that these people have, and they've been through a lot, and they latch on to things of national pride, like the football national team. Very proud people, and great experience for me personally dealing with them as well. Just real passionate. Don't want to get offside with them, but yeah, passionate.
Still,
Chubbs, I'll explain you, Chubbs. And I know you generally do the edits and whatnot after the show, but I've already had people asking me that they'd like to share that particular segment with Robbie on.
Yeah, we'll get that on tomorrow night.
There's a very big Iraqi football podcast. I think he's got upwards of 150,000 followers. So I'll reach out to him and let him know when they find it.
I put it on Twitter today, and I added the Iraq national team, and I think we've got over 50,000 impressions just on that tweet about Robbie Stanton with Iraq when I added that. So it's huge. It's huge.
Yeah.
He's right.
And let me say, I'm going to finish on that point. And we used to talk about this in Soccer Stoppage Time. We talk about it now, and I bang my head all the time. We've got some strong communities in Australia. The Australians have been here for a while. They've all got different backgrounds. The Iraqi, the Vietnamese, the Indian communities, like at a time where we want support for the game and we want, followings and more crowds, how some of the imbeciles at the APL or clubland can't see the benefits of engaging with those communities is beyond my comprehension. But stupidity has no boundaries, I suppose.
100%. Stealth, before I get into our chat box, which has got a lot of questions for you tonight, knowing that you've said that you're not going to be here in the next 2 weeks, so a lot of questions have come for you. But before I get into
none from the ATO, I hope, Joe.
No, none from the ATO. But before I get into those questions, I've got my own that we're going to start in there. And I want to first let's start with the Western United Football Club.
You've set me up with the first question today, Chubb. So
yeah, so we might as well go in the second one. What's going on with Western United? What's the latest?
Well, it's another example of, we said earlier about the girls and great sports and, great athleticism, but sometimes they want to pick and choose whether they're considered equals or whether they want to play the female card. It's the same with some of our executives. You've got someone like Arthur Pappas's brother, Manny Pappas, who struts around Melbourne claiming he's going to be the next chairman of the Western United Football Club based on the investment of this KAC or CAC or PAC, whatever the clowns are called. They've got 40 litigations around the world. This company that wants to buy, this organisation that wants to buy Western United Football Club has no less than 40 matters of litigation across the world. Some are quite known, like they pulled out of the purchase of KV Kortrijk, they pulled out of a couple of other purchases. You give them the benefit of the doubt, but my question to the APL is this. Why is it that the PFA had to undertake this study to work out that these guys weren't fit and proper? Point one. Secondly, why is Stephen Conroy engaging with clowns, representing these clowns? And thirdly, why is it that the APL is not protecting the game and Football Australia? I'll say this. In mid-May, all licenses had to be reviewed and signed off by FA, that they were financially viable. Why has it been delayed? Why are they entertaining these clowns that have no less than 40 litigations? Why are they entertaining clowns in Melbourne that depend on their partners to pay their rent as frontmen at a time where it creates uncertainty for the players? John Aloisi and Mal Piata have done an unbelievable job. These problems with the Western United have been around for a long time. And you've got good people like John Aloisi and Mal, the football director there, and Andrew Durante, that have kept that tribalism amongst players. They're late 11 days on paying yet again. There's no certainty when they're going to get paid. The APL, from my understanding, has made a decision that they're not fit. These new owners are not fit and proper. Yet no one's prepared to ring them and say, listen, clowns, go, and say to the current owner, mate, you're either going to put up your money or, this isn't looking good. And I'll tell you what's going to happen. If they drag this out any longer, there'll be litigation against Football Australia for not exercising the rights in May to make sure the licence were trading solvently. And there's going to be some significant challenges. And I just defies, there's people's lives at stake here. Not just the footballers, but the whole infrastructure of how John Aloisi and his support staff kept that team competitive is beyond my comprehension. But our game must attract imbeciles. Absolutely imbeciles. And I will say this to Stephen Conroy, who they tell me is a good man. Stephen Conroy, I'm telling you to you openly and transparently and upfront, stop engaging with clowns that purport to be chairmen that wait on their missuses to pay their rent at the end and their coffees at the end of the week. Fix the game.
All right, well, let's just quickly go to some super chat box questions to Stealth, and then we'll throw in a couple more before we let him go while we're on the...
You didn't want to respond, Chubba? There's nothing to respond?
Mate, I agree. There's nothing really to respond. You've wrapped it up perfectly, and like you said, it's incredible. And like you said, the job that John Aloisi done, and that is unbelievable. But, mate, we've seen this before. Unfortunately, Stealth, we've seen this before in our game. It's not the first time, is it? So that's the sad thing about it.
Mate, you think we'd learn. We'd learn.
We've
got clowns running around Melbourne, around the sewers of the Yarra, silking themselves up. You've invited some of these clowns to the show, and they won't come on, will they?
No, they won't take our calls. They won't take our emails. They won't take our text messages, and
But they're going to run the game.
100%.
Clowns Incorporated, Proprietary Limited.com.
Yeah.
Tone, I wanted to ask you, what's the latest? Is there any movement on the Central Coast situation or ownership there, or I just nothing about it.
Yeah, they're in discussions with a number of parties. I really hope that, it's a good question. And I really hope the Central Coast survive. They always seem to be in a battle to survive, and they always find a way, and I hope they do. I mean, here's the difference. Central Coast, a small community, not in a major city, has sold more, identified, developed, and sold more players than any other club in Australia. Yeah. With Adelaide sort of coming close to them. But more importantly, what I didn't realise the other day, they're only second to Melbourne Victory when it comes to finals appearances.
Yeah, that's correct.
So the smallest budget across the 20 years, identified, developed, the most players in a small community like the Central Coast, and we can't afford to let clubs like that go.
No, that'd be terrible.
Anyway, let's get to some of this chat because we always want our viewers to be part of the show. That's why we do it. So let's start.
You're going to fix that chat thing this week, aren't you, John?
Yeah, I can see it here from my phone, but I will fix it so you can get it better, make it a bit bigger so you can read it a lot better as well. But let's start with Michael Francis Stealth. Any news on which club Noah Boltic is going to? Also, Jack Holloman and Angus Thurgate.
Angus Thurgate, let's start with the simple one. Angus Thurgate is still contracted to Western United Football Club, but he's one of 17 players that have put in a request and given notice to Western United to fix their outstanding salaries in the next 14 days. So he can only get released if that obligation is not met. Jake Holman, he's off contract. He's represented by an overseas company called Base. I think they promised him Barcelona, Real Madrid and Manchester United, so I'm not sure what's going to happen there. And Noah Bodic's agent keeps telling the world he's got about 1,655 clubs.
Because we did do a video on him that he was about to leave and go with Segic and so on, but it's sort of like, just died down. Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting.
Okay, let's, for one of our New Zealand viewers here, CM says, surely Phoenix is going to sign some players in because a lot of players have left still. Are you hearing anything on Wellington Phoenix?
Well, their budget's been slashed. It's Steve Galcalo is looking for players. The head coach of Wellington Phoenix is trying to find to recruit specifics. They're going to go young as well. I expect a lot of the league to go. Everyone's working towards reducing their salary caps to meeting the new hard stand cap that's been introduced by the APL. So at the moment, my understanding is they're looking for a foreign 10, a foreign 9, and they're looking for a local New Zealand or Australian left back.
Excellent. All right. I'll keep going with the questions. We've got another one here from, I think it's Brown. I'll get it, but I can read what it's saying. Stealth Anthony Caceres, after 6 years at Sydney FC, has moved on. Any news where he's going?
I'll tell you at the moment, Chubb, I can't tell you.
Well, that's why I knew this question, but it's on the chat box, so we've got to ask you. We've got to at least. But will he be in the A-League, or can we have, or...
Wait and see.
He hasn't had enough wine. To give us that.
But I've only had 2 glasses, so take it easy, mate.
Okay. On the other news as well, we had that we were spot on as well. Western Wanderers announced finally just missing his name, the striker
Costa
Barbarossas was spot on. He's moved to Western Sydney Wanderers. So again, still we were right on the money again as this show. And what do you think? It's a good signing for them despite his age.
I think he's going to do well. And the reason I think he's going to do well is because there's a World Cup at the end of the season. And the Wanderers have lost some firepower. I think they've lost about 26 or 27 goals in Nikola Milanovic, Zach Sapsford and Anderson. So they've had to bring someone in, and I think he's an experienced guy. He's a smart guy. He can hold the ball up. He can score goals. The last 2 years, he scored 23 goals for Wellington in a team that was quite structured. I think the attacking intent of Western Sydney Wanderers will suit him tremendously. The only concern I have is who they're going to put next to him.
Yeah. Well, we've had another one now just come on. Alligator, he's also asking, is there any more signings stealth for Western Sydney Wanderers that you know about?
Oh, they're definitely going to sign another striker. They have to. That's their intent. Obviously, we spoke historically about Ugarkovic signing, and he's since been announced. And I believe that Stajic will be looking for another centre back who could be Australian, and without giving too much away, could be from Newcastle.
Yeah, I've seen also that Bruno Burma was named assistant coach at Macarthur Bulls today as well, so he's moved across.
Bruno who?
Burma, is it?
Yeah, Burma. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, he's moved across now as assistant coach there at Macarthur Bulls. So how are they looking, Macarthur shaping up as well?
They're going to be okay. Callum Talbot signed there. They've got another 2 important signings that they'll announce in the next 2 weeks that I think will be key. So I think they'll be fine. I think they've got a lot of good young kids coming. Seb Krislovic is a good player. There's a couple of others that made their appearances last year. Ollie Razendov, Young Delhi. So with the players that I know they've signed, and they will announce with another 2 coming, I think they'll be competitive. I think rightly so. Sam Krislovic and Milos Stajovski will be looking at the ACL too, because although you don't make as much money in the first and second round, once if that ACL 2 is what the Mariners won 2 years ago. When the Mariners won it, the prize money was $2 million. The prize money now is $7 million. Wow. And that's the ACL 2. So it's worth making a stab at, yeah. And heaven forbid if an Australian club goes on a run in the ACL 1, it ranges from 400,000 qualification right through to 18 million. You're winning it. So to put that in perspective for a lot of the people listening is when Western Sydney Wanderers won it, they would have collected 18 million. There's about 6 million. There's about 6 years of losses there, isn't it? So there's some real Australian football's on a trajectory of developing players for the purpose of selling, but there's some real if you get the ACL right, there's some real benefits, financial benefits.
Stealth, I wanted to ask you something away from the A-League because you are heading off to America. You're jetting off there. And right now there's a tournament being played there, the World Club Championship. And the reason I want to bring it up to you is for 2 reasons I'm bringing it up. A lot of people weren't keen on this tournament. But what this tournament has brought up, I think, despite if we like it or not, is that there's more than European football. We've seen now the South American teams are absolutely unknown teams are coming into the competition excellent and have brought some excellent results and, overshadowing the Premier League teams and some European giants. And I say that because when we talk about we wanted to bring in some teams maybe from Thailand to the A-League and so on, and this is what it's all about. Is that now a big achievement where this tournament got criticised? That's where you're seeing the big advantages, where now you're seeing, like, we know how good South American football is, and when we always talk about Brazil, we talk about Argentina, but obviously the club football, clubland over there is very strong as well. It's not just about European football or Asia or so on, or what we get, what the media gets soaked in. We're seeing now just the other side of how good some other teams are and what they bring to world football.
Bring culture. They're probably more passionate and they live football in South America more than most of Europe, if we're really honest. And it's pure. It's pure. It's not financial. It's not commercial. It's not with the razzmatazz. Look, there's a lot of uneducated perceptions and ignorant perceptions, but one of the reasons the MLS today, you need $500 million to buy a license, and you then have to have the stadium and the training facilities, is because of that South American culture. when the MLS 30 years ago was on life support, in many ways not dissimilar to us, dominated by media-saturated investments in NBL and NBA and all that, the reason the smart guys that took it over succeeded was because they started bringing Mexicans and South Americans, and obviously significant population in America. God knows, between the Mexicans and Colombians and all the rest, there's probably 40, 50 million of America are South American backgrounds, and not to mention the people across the border. So all of a sudden their TV rights went through the roof. And to your point earlier, Chubb, what we've been saying for a long, long time, bring some Thai players, bring some Vietnamese players, because not only are we going to fuel it locally, domestically, but we're going to get people watching their game from overseas. But what do I know?
100%.
It's all exposure, Chubbs. We don't see the exposure here, but you talk to South American football followers that follow the leagues over there religiously. I'm talking, your Chilean league, your Uruguayan league, your Brazilian league, and like you said, the Argentinian league. But you're seeing a lot of these clubs that we're familiar with, Palmeiras, Boca Juniors, River Plate, that are in this competition. A lot of these big name clubs produce some of the best players that have ever been produced in world football. It's just that we don't have the exposure here. But mate, if we can crack that market, and the talent and some of the talent of Australian football that has come from that background as well.
I think still should be, for me, should have a seat in the football board, because the thing that he's talked about, even with the universities over the years, I know Stealth, and he's talked about this Malaysia, Thailand, so on, bringing players or clubs, getting them in the A-League. It would be huge, and it's unfortunate that, like you said, the people here don't have the vision, or if they do have the vision, they don't really do anything about it. They say great idea, and it just sits there and nothing happens. And when the A-League is suffering as it is, if you could bring a Vietnamese club or a Thailand club and bring people, even a South American or something, I don't know, something different, could you imagine?
I looked at some stats. Last season, our average crowds were 8,400, and people may think that's poor. I think
that's pretty healthy.
And that's very healthy, considering the lack of the imbeciles running the APL, the management of the APL, the lack of media presence, the sabotage that happens from mainstream media. That's an outstanding. So imagine if we look back at history, if you look at the Greek communities, the Italian communities, the Croatian communities, the various Serbian and other communities that were the foundations of our game as we know it. Imagine now, it's time now to bring the other communities that exist there, the Vietnamese, the Indian, etc., etc., etc. There is, yes, our game's got challenges, but our game can be fixed. But when you've got theorists that want to talk and clap because a player or a coach has black hair and comes from this or that, or they've got no idea what they're talking about. We're Australians. We've got our own culture. We've got our own structures. We've got our own beliefs. Our migration is different to other parts of the world, and we just don't know how to embrace it.
On that note, Stealth, mate, we've kept you a bit over today, but we thank you for your efforts. It's been really entertaining getting Robbie on tonight, yourself, and updating it. I know there's a lot more questions. We could be here all night for you, but have a safe trip over to America. We'll catch up in 2 weeks, and we'll look forward to catching up with you when you get back.
Hopefully I can get Donald Trump to invest in the A-League.
Hopefully you bring some big news from over there.
Keep us posted on our chat groups, mate. Have a safe trip.
You keep me posted on the Bulldog retention and recruitment, mate. See you later.
See you, mate. Don't worry. Cheers, mate.
See you, Stealth.
See you, buddy.
There was Stealth, and Andy, always a great to have Stealth on, and hopefully he answered a lot of the things what's happening right now.
Just quickly while we're sort of talking about that, and you're in the sort of lower divisions here, but you don't really have to look too far sometimes for talent. I'm talking
100%.
Even I can't remember. I was actually just trying to find it now, where I saw a game that was played over the weekend, and there was a player from Solomon Islands. Not very far in that region, close to New Zealand. Mate, these smaller countries, and everyone obviously can't forget probably arguably one of the best Australian players, Tim Cahill. His background in you know, where he's come from and how good he was for Australia, but in that sort of Pacific Island region, you know, there's a lot of talent that's out there, and even languishing around the lower leagues that we can sort of tap into, like Tony said. But yeah, there's just not enough emphasis on it, unfortunately.
Yeah, Brown Bear, to answer your question, Brown Bear 19, me and Andy are Western Sydney Wanderers fans. We've grown up here in the Western region, like Andy said. Me and Andy have grown up at Club Marconi. So when Western Sydney Wanderers did join the A League, we did jump on, and we are fans of the Western Sydney Wanderers. Unless that's changed for you, Andy.
No, absolutely, mate. Fans, absolutely.
What we'll do now, we will turn our attention, of course, to the NPL. It's really flying, and, you know, big news with the NPL. The window opens tomorrow, so clubs are been rushing, signing players. For the last 10 games of the season. That's all there is, 10 games to go. We know the Premier League has a top 6 playoff. The NPL1 will have the promotion relegation game. So a lot of coaches, I can tell you, Andy, have been making phone calls, working overtime all night, a bit like the EPL transfer window, because it opens up tomorrow, and a lot of clubs that's what they rely on, the players they can bring in. You know, some needed to save relegation, some needed to help promotion, some help to, you know, make the top 6 playoffs. So it's all been happening. But what we'll do, as we always do, first we'll go through all the Premier League and NPL1 results with Andy, and then we'll go through some of the games and what's been happening.
Yeah, you might have to just make sure my app is up to date, mate, as opposed to last week. But I'll go through the results that I do have from the weekend NPL results. So at Central Coast Mariners 3, Sydney United 1, Blacktown City 3, St George City 1, Wollongong Wolves 1, Rockdale Keep on Keeping on 3, Northwest Spirit 1, Western Sydney Wanderers 0. Mount Druitt had a win 1-0 against Manly United. The big one of the weekend, Chubb, was Sydney Olympic. Your boys 2-0 against Marconi Stallions. St George and Sutherland Sharks drew 1-1. And Apia, a massive 6-2 win away from home against Sydney United. Sydney FC.
Yeah, while you're there, before we go in the games, might as well go through the results of the NPL1 as well, and then we can go through some games for both leagues.
No worries. I'm just bringing the NPL1 results up here. Hakawa Sydney 4, University of New South Wales 3, Bankstown City 0, Northern Tigers 1, Macarthur Eames 2, Bonnyrigg White Eagles 0, Interlions 3, Bulls Academy 1, Mounties and Rydermere drew 2-2, Newcastle Jets down your Dulwich Hill 3-0, SD Raiders, another loss for SD Raiders, this time away at home to Hills United.
Yeah, so some big results there. We'll go through the NPL1 shortly, but we'll go back to the New South Wales Premier League. As we know, it's really heating up. I mean, interesting there, Patrick Weinskite of Manly United was released last week as well from Manly United. As we know, my mail is you could be seeing him at Hills United and next year with Gary Van Egmond tipped to be taking maybe a coaching role at Western Sydney.
Oh, Gary did say last week he had a relationship with Patrick, didn't he?
Yeah, so don't be surprised if you see Patrick Weinskite at Hills United next season and Gary Van Egmond moving to Western Sydney Wanderers. Getting, you know, that could be on the cards. But Mount Druitt, big result for Mount Druitt, winning 1-0. And like, we'll look at the bottom team, Central Coast. We spoke about it last weekend, that Central Coast really need to start bringing those A-League players back. Sydney United were the form team of the competition, 5 unbeaten, and that will be a huge loss there for Sydney United. I know they went late down to 10 men, but going down 3-1, it's a game they would have been penciling in for 3 points, so that would be a huge loss there for them.
Oh, unbelievable loss, that one. That was one of the ones, along with, as I mentioned, Sydney Olympic and Marconi. That was, the two.
Yeah, we'll get to those, yeah.
Big results of the weekend. But, look, Sydney United would be, absolutely kicking themselves. They were, travelling quite well there. And against a team, as you know, Chubbs, it's, not travelling too well.
Rose scoring there. Rose is a good player for the Mariners, so I see him on the score sheet there. So, yeah, definitely a huge loss there for Sydney United.
And Joe Rose only 17 years old, I think 17 or 18 years old.
Correct. Very good player. Yeah, but we'll leave before we go to the Olympic game. Spirit had a good win again. The Western Sydney Wanderers youth. I mean, they're dropping down into that little bit of the relegation zone again. They'll be really worried. The Wanderers. That's a huge win for Spirit. They're really confident of cracking that top two. They're staying at the pace. You know, I mean, they're only 3 points away from that top two, and a good win, 1-0 win, half full win against Western Sydney Wanderers, who, like I said, are really struggling in 14th position at the moment.
And it just keeps Spirit in touch with that top two with Rockdale and Marconi. Rockdale's now got a 3-point gap on Marconi, which is quite phenomenal considering how far ahead. I think Marconi were 5 points clear at one stage. But Rockdale, yeah, and so it keeps Spirit, in touching distance of those top two teams. Have you heard anything on? Is there any rumours in terms of club potential signings, Chubbs, or does that sort of really happen?
There's a lot of next week. But you hear a lot of things say, unless it's concrete, it's hard just to say.
Have you guys been tapped up for any of your boys or not yet?
No. We had one player that could have left, but he's staying. We've signing four players. Obviously, we're bringing 4 players, some from MPL lower league and one from the same league. Yeah, but I mean, it's a very hard, and it's hard bringing in players at this time of window. But unfortunately, you've got to do what you can because, like I said, with 10 games to go, everyone needs it. With 30 rounds, you're getting a lot of injuries, a lot of suspensions, a lot of players missing. So you really need to bring in freshen up the squad for the last 10 rounds.
You mentioned Mount Druitt, big win for them.
We mentioned Mount Druitt. I said it was a huge win for Manly. Mount Druitt, they need to start getting those results if they're going to have any chance to stay out of that bottom two. Manly's really dropped off in the last few weeks, so huge result for Mount Druitt. Wollongong Wolves, Rockdale, like we said, Rockdale's just been on fire. They've just continued. They've continued their great run. And again, 2 weeks in a row, it's very rare you don't see Jurasevsky on the score sheet for 2 weeks in a row, and they're still banging in 3-4 goals a game. So that's a huge result, beating Wollongong there 3-1.
Yeah, big result, a double to Moody Najjar there. Look, they're just, like I said, it's hard to see how it's hard to comprehend how they're 3 points out of Marconi, and that result against Marconi, obviously a couple of weeks back, was huge for them as well. But at one stage, Marconi was sort of high flying on their own up the top. But full credit to Rockdale, they've reined them in and they've taken over now. So it just gets juicier and juicier each week, Chubbs.
100%. Sydney Olympic 2, Marconi Stadium's nil. We spoke about Olympic. Labi Khalidi was under a lot of pressure from fans, from social media, but he has started turning results around slowly. I mean, they're only 4 points out of the 6 and really making good headway. Huge win over Marconi, an own goal from Bernie. Ruiz Diaz scored in the second.
Great goal, Ruiz Diaz.
Great goal. But Olympic are starting to find form at the right time, and with 10 rounds to go, they could be a team that we probably weren't predicting not so long ago for this top 6 spot, but they could be the outside chance of getting in there.
Oh, for sure, and we spoke about it last week with Brano. They've put themselves in touching distance, and the way the results are going on any given day with anyone beating anyone, they can really make a play. And Chubbs, more than anyone how much pressure is on their club for success, and especially on Labi Khalidi. So, it's a huge result for them. Disappointing for Marconi, obviously, my local club. Not the way they'd want to go out against a bitter rival over the years, and an NSL rival, if you like, in Sydney Olympic. But, look, kudos to Sydney Olympic.
It's funny, Olympics had the wood over Marconi last year, beating them as well, and this year. Yeah, it's been.
They just get up for that game, don't they?
Yeah. It's always a huge game. It's a huge game, and it was a big game back in the old NSL days, and it's a huge game now.
The pity it's played at. I don't know if you see, it's played out there at Jubilee Oval there at St George Dragons' home ground, and it just doesn't really have the atmosphere. It's obviously you're really really far away from the action, but as opposed to the good old days back at Belmore, where they I think they still do play a handful of games there, but they're taking a few more games away to Jubilee Oval, which just doesn't really seem to have the atmosphere, unfortunately.
We had Franco Parisi last week on the show, spoke a lot about his players individually, how good they're going and everything. Well, they hit a very formed team as well that was in form. Sydney FC Youth for 6. And Apia now is the real movers. They're in third spot. Fourth spot. 4 points away from that top 2 as well. So that top 2, is a real big ding dong battle now with Spirit and Apia really, really on Marconi's tails.
Yeah, he talked them up. Franco, and that's a huge win for them. And Sydney, it's interesting because Sydney FC we spoke about in recent weeks as well.
Going really well, travelling really well in one of the form teams.
Well, yeah, we said, as expected, a few of the A-League boards will be back in that NPL. In the NPL fold with Sydney FC, but that's an absolute hammering of the highest order. You got to say, it was 2-1 at half time. Chubbs that particular game, and Apia just put the foot on the accelerator. Even with a man down, they managed to score 2 goals. They were down to 10 men in the 79th minute. At that stage, it was 4-1. But to score 2 more goals that and run out 6-2 winners is just absolutely massive for Apia.
Yeah, Mick D's saying Olympic 4 wins out of 5. He thinks they're definitely. You're right, Mick D. They are definitely the form team. One of the form teams in the comp right now, Sydney Olympic, really flying high. Blacktown City, important win for their top 6 hopes, like we said, with Olympic chasing and Sydney United chasing. 3-1 win.
They're the ones kind of flying under the radar, Chubbs, Blacktown City. I know we had Andy on the other week.
I thought a couple of weeks ago they went good. Then they had a little bit of a drop-off. Now they seem to have, they've had another good, important win.
Yeah, sitting pretty in 5th spot, 36. They're 4 points. Well, sorry, they're 7 points clear of Sydney Olympic in 7th. So, a few more results.
Yeah, they're 4 points. They're 4 points ahead of Olympic. They're 4 points ahead of Olympic and 3 points ahead of Sydney United.
Yeah, so if anything goes their way, they can be the dark horse. That's for sure.
100%. Another game there will look Sutherland Sharks and St George, both teams needing points. It was a game that they would probably cancel each other out in a draw. Sutherland started the season on fire, 3 wins in a row. I spoke to Steve Zoricic, their coach. Hopefully we have him on next week as well. He wanted to come on this week, but unfortunately they got training today. But they're a club who could be in a little bit of bother. They're 4 points away from that second last spot where you go into a playoff game with an NPL 1 club. But they're going to start having to pick up points, and they'll be a little bit disappointed they couldn't get all 3 points there. Maybe 1 point's not enough at this time of season.
Yeah, Chubbs, I'm sort of more involved in the youth space, and a lot of people know that Sutherland region is just a massive, massive market for participation and youth football. So
it's the biggest association in Australian hemisphere is the Sutherland Shire Association. They've got the most registered players.
There you go. So for them to be flirting with relegation, so to speak, for such a big club and a big catchment, probably not ideally where they want to be. But look, they're 4 points clear of that second last spot at this stage, and still obviously a little bit of work to do because everyone around them is going to start thinking the same thing.
100%. Looking at, did we say the table? Well, we did. We'll just quickly say Rockdale on 46 points. Second, Marconi 43. Spirit third on 40. Apia fourth on 39. Blacktown City fifth on 36. And Sydney United close off that top 6 on 33 points. And like we said, the bottom 2 spots at the moment are held with Central Coast on 10 and Mount Druitt on 12. Looking at some of the games coming up this week, we've got Manly taking on St George on Friday night. So important game for Manly to see if they can bounce back. A huge game for the top 6, this one. Sydney Olympic taking on Blacktown City. So that's going to be a huge game there. Western Sydney Wanderers Youth are taking on Wollongong Wolves. Another huge game down the bottom. Central Coast taking on Mount Druitt. So that's a 6-pointer there. Marconi taking on Sydney FC Youth. They're going to need a bounce back. Rockdale, you should say, should take the chocolates again out of against Sutherland Sharks. You've got St. George taking on Apia, and Sydney United in a big game as well. When you look at the top 6, Sydney United taking on Spirit. So, mate, there's some big games stand out for the top 6, top 2, and also for that bottom place coming up this week. Huge round coming up.
Oh, massive, Chubbs. Yeah, I'm actually trying to work out how I can try to manage to be, depending on my daughter's game at the Marconi Sydney FC game on Sunday. So yeah, no, it's going to be a huge round. It always is, and that's, you know, like I said, mate. Yeah. Anyone can beat anyone on the day. So it's always something to look forward to, these NPL fixtures.
Yeah. In my league, well, the big move is there. Northern Tigers, we know, are leading the comp now on 39 points. Second, we've got the Bulls Academy after their loss on 38. Well, the big four from Grace has been the SD Raiders. As you know, your club that you follow closely too, Andy, on 35 points. We had Goran on, and unfortunately, they're paying a huge price. I spoke even to former technical director there, Nicky Carl, today, and unfortunately, yeah, they're paying a heavy burden for how well they went in the cup competitions, and it has sort of triggered and brought them a little bit of a stumbling block in the competition, losing 4 out of the last 6 games with a draw. So, I mean, they're still in a good position with 10 games to go, but I think they'll be a little bit disappointed because they were like 5-6 points ahead, and now to be sitting 4 points away from automatic promotion spot with the Northern Tigers, which I feel SD Raiders have a much better team. That's just my personal view. It'd be pretty disappointing. Yeah, it'd be pretty disappointing, Andy.
Oh, well, Chubbs, you mentioned it earlier with your club, Dully. You know, you go for a few injuries and a few, you know, players missing here and there, and add Cups competition to that. Add the Cups competition like SD Raiders have had, and that's obviously been. I think we mentioned it last week as well. That's sort of been, unfortunately, what their downfall is. I'm interested to get your
I mean, Gary Van Engman we had on, and he's really improved Hills United, who was struggling. That's another win for them. They've had another massive win, 1-0 as well. So Van Engman has really, you know, the new coach has settling in now. He's done a good job at Hills to get them back, you know, away. We had a hard fought, we took 6 debutants, 20s. Like you said, we've been waiting for this window to open. We had back-to-back wins, but going up to Newcastle Jets, which I've got to say, they've got some terrific young boys coming through that academy side. Wow, some of their boys were really good. I mean, 3-0, I mean, I was proud of my young boys, like we said, but yeah, Newcastle Jets were very strong. And, you know, they're another team. They're on 34 points, and if you think they had 3 points deducted off them, with everything that happened, they could have been sitting 2 points behind the Tigers and Bulls Academy, because I feel the Jets are another team that with the Bulls Academy should be the teams really in that top 2 spots.
Yeah, no, it's unbelievable, Chubbs. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, you've got so many clubs fighting for that. I mean, look how close 4th, 5th, 6th are. I mean, even you got to include Rotherham, 7th and 8th. You know,
yeah, or even Blacktown Spartans with 10 games to go. Realistically, you're going to run even on 33 points, 6 points. Like anyone can still jag that, you know, that automatic promotion spot to the Premier League.
Yeah, 100%, and even that second spot, you know, is huge, as you know.
100%. I mean. Playoff. In the bottom half, I mean, you see you've got Bankstown City 23, us 21, MacArthur 19. Mounties are in that spot where you don't want to be in that playoff 18. And like we said, the club that's fallen off grace, despite, well, I'm hearing they're going to spend big. So we'll see what players actually bring in tomorrow. But 12 points for Bonnyrigg is just...
the window open for Chubbs?
Tomorrow, I think 7 days, 10 days, something like that it's open for. But it's open from tomorrow. But a club like Bonnyrigg sitting where they are, it's starting to get a little bit scary because they're 7 points away to be out of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and we spoke about it at length last week. I don't think we're gonna sort of mention it too much this week, but an absolute fall from grace if they were to be relegated again to NPL 2.
All right, Andy, can we get an update on what's happening with the World Club competitions? We discussed that.
Can I just
Oh, you
mention
got anything else you want to add?
just a few more movements on the local scene, and I'm actually interested to hear about your conversation with Nicky Carl. As you know, he's now the second week in charge at Marconi Youth.
Yeah, so he if all goes well, he'll be on the show next week. As we know, he done a terrific job with SD Raiders. Now as the technical director at Marconi. He said to me, look, his biggest task and his biggest hurdle at the moment is to keep Marconi Youth up. Survival, that's what it's all about. But yeah, he's got a few things to say, and it's going to be interesting to get his view because we know what a great job he done at SD Raiders, and what kind of approach and what he's got, what's going to happen at Club Marconi.
Yeah, it's a massive job. I can tell you, I was at the weekend fixtures, Chubbs up the road, yeah, they played the Bulls Academy and MacArthur Bulls Academy in the round over the weekend. And I can tell you, there's actually been some movement in MacArthur Bulls Academy as well at the boys' youth level with their TD parting ways, and as well, two other coaches have followed him. And I'm hearing the gentleman that they brought in, his name is Shaf Sogol, as a new TD of the Bulls Youth Academy. And they've, I understand he's your UEFA license job, so really, really big raps. Music to my ears. He's a big believer in development of players. Already in the first week in charge over the weekend, he promoted a lot of players. I understand 6 boys got promoted up to the 20s from the 18s. So, yeah, doing big things. I think he actually spent quite a few years at Wanderers, I understand, and nurtured the players the likes of Marcus Eunice and Eamon Galusi. So, yeah, it comes with big raps. Speaking to some parents there over the weekend, really, really excited of what the new TD has brought in already. And yeah, there was some fantastic football as you normally expect up the road at the NPL level, Chubbs, when you go out and watch some great goals that were scored. But yeah, just quickly wanted to bring up the NPL Youth Club Championship, and Sydney FC actually flying on top of there, but down towards the bottom. You got some big clubs. Newcastle Jets are actually last on club championship. Sydney United are second last.
I was thinking the other day I travelled there 2.5 hours to get to Lake Macquarie on the weekend.
Oh yeah.
And I'm thinking, even for the youth, how hard it's difficult to travel to Sydney every second week.
100%. Yeah, but it's a big thing.
And you've got younger players, 14, 15 years old. You know, it's not an easy task, and for the parents that do it, congratulations to them. But it's a huge job.
My daughter's there in 2 weeks, Chubbs. We've got Newcastle coming up, so we're contemplating whether to do an overnight stay or whether to drive up in the morning. It's it's one of those things, mate. As you know, being involved at that level. So, but yeah, no, there's it's really exciting. A lot of things going on, but there's a lot of clubs down in that boys' youth NPL 1 that are looking over their shoulders. Clubs like, as I said, Marconi, Hills. You've Northern Tigers and Hills aren't too far. They're only 6 points ahead of Newcastle Jets in club championship, as are Central Coast Mariners. So a lot of big clubs down towards the bottom of that club championship, Chubbs, which obviously means relegation to NPL 2.
Yeah, 100%. So we'll be following that closely. Andy, what World Club Championship games did we have? Major ones? There have been a few shocks, hasn't there? This tournament's starting to heat up now.
Yeah, Chubbs, the club. Overnight or this morning today, actually, I should say. Juventus ran out 4-1 winners against Wydad. Real Madrid 3, Pachuca 1. Real Madrid down to 10 men early in that game, actually, but they still managed to get the win. Red Bull Salzburg and Al Hilal drew 0-0, and Manchester City had hit Al Ain for 6, a 6-0 win for Manchester City. That was this morning. Over the weekend, I don't know how far back you want to go, but Saturday our time, we had Benfica hit Auckland City for 6, a bit more respectable result for Auckland City there. Flamingo, one of those clubs, Chubbs, we spoke about before about South American clubs, beat Chelsea, the might of Chelsea in the Premier League 3-1. Los Angeles FC went down to Esperance Tunis 1-0. And Boca Juniors went down 2-1 to Bayern Munich, a big result.
Andy, when I look at it, let's go by group just quickly, right? You look at Group A, you had Palmeiras, Inter Miami, FC Porto, Al Hilal, and if you look, it's Palmeiras on 4 points, Inter Miami 4 points. So FC Porto on 1 point, very disappointing. You would have been looking at Porto as one of the teams that, I mean, they could still go through, but would be in a better position than they are now. Group B has been the big one. Botafogo, the Brazilian team, they're on 6 points, beating Paris Saint-Germain.
They beat PSG.
Yeah, they beat PSG. We know PSG on 3 points, Atletico Madrid 3 points, Seattle Sounders 0 points. So now it's looking between PSG and Atletico Madrid, who's going to, get to the next.
Yeah.
In Group C, well, this one's gone according to plan. Bayern Munich have done well, 6 out of 6. Benfica on 4 points. Boca Juniors are on 1, and we know Auckland City FC. Group D, again, another one. Flamingo leading the way here. They've been the surprise package, 6 points. Chelsea on 3 points. Esperance on 3 points. And Los Angeles FC on 3 points. So this one here is going to be an interesting...
Is on 0.
On 0. So this one, it'll be interesting how this finishes up.
Yeah.
Chelsea's still got to, they've got to get something out of their last game to have any chance to progress.
100%.
Group E, you got River Plate on 4, Inter on 4, Monterrey 2, and Euro Red Diamonds on 0. So again, River Plate, Inter, Monterrey, any of those 3 could still qualify going into the last game.
Yep, 100% there.
Group F, you got, again, another one. Flamengo's leading the way, Dortmund on 4 points, and you got Malmo Sundown on 3 points. Again, Ulsan Hyundai. The Asian teams have been disappointing. So we've got to talk about that. They've been very disappointed in this club championship. But again, any of those 3 can qualify. Group G, well, this is just going to plan. Juventus and Man City both on 6 points. The other 2, 0.
Yep.
This one again, Real Madrid got their first win today, so they moved to 4 points. FC Salzburg on 4 points. Al Hilal's on 2 points. They could still play a part in qualifying. So still with 1 game to go in a lot of these groups, a part of, you look at Man City's group, pretty much nearly every other group, there's still something to play off going into the last game of the season.
Of the group stage, yeah.
Group stage.
Definitely, Chubbs, yeah. And it's going to be interesting. And you know what, the more I've been following it, I think we spoke the other week when it started that there hasn't been much fanfare about it, and I haven't really kept an eye on it, whatever. But the more it's been going on, I've been watching the games because of timing.
It starts to grow on you.
It does. It's grown on me, mate. And the best thing for me is this group format. You and me are traditionalists.
It is a World Cup, exactly like the World Cup.
Exactly right, which is what we mentioned previously as well. So the format is what I love.
So, Andy, can you see this now as a place? It's got a place in our competition now?
Oh, Chubbs, look, I think, personally, I think it's too much. I think there's just a lot of, it's basically...
It's like you would wonder, it's too much because we've got the Champions League, Europa League, and the Confederations League, the last one, Conference League. It would have been, if you never had them and you just had this, it would be, unbelievable.
Not only that, Chubbs, but the season's, it's come straight on the back of the season. I don't know if you've seen, but there's already fixtures out for pre-season friendlies next month.
Well, these players don't rest.
So the players are not resting. There's no welfare there.
The coaches aren't resting.
Well, that's right. And a lot of it just seems to be, obviously, it's FIFA. It's driven by financial.
Yeah, because they wanted to have something to compete with UEFA, with the Champions League, obviously. And with
Correct.
the talk of all the Super League happening and all that, they needed to do something. So this is sort of what they brought in.
Yeah, correct. But just the timing of it for me, I just don't like the timing of it because these clubs have just come off the back of, 38, 40-week seasons.
When you see these tournaments, it's either you need to have a break in a tournament. I don't know when you can play. The schedules aren't heavy. I don't want to be there to try and organise a schedule for international football games or European games. But
when else are you going to play it? When else are you going to play it? It's not like you can play it in between all the other cups competitions that are around. So. Yeah, look, I'm not a fan. I've jumped on board because of the format and obviously the clubs and the talent that's out there and clubs that you don't see get to play in here in Australia, like your South American clubs that you mentioned. So the talent is unbelievable in those regions, and it's just good to be able to watch it. But yeah, no, not a fan of how it's or the timing of when it's played.
Well, we'll follow those games. Like we said, we're going into the last group game, and we're going to see. And then I'm sure when the round of 16 and quarters and semis come around, we'll be all glued to the TV set seeing what's happening, because I'm sure there'll be some cracking games. And like we said, there's already been some big upsets and probably some eye-opening results just to see it with world football. Some other teams that you don't hear of, just what a tremendous job they've done in this tournament. Andy, quickly on our Premier League in the last 5 minutes, mate. There's been a lot of my club's probably one moving the window more than any other club, and Man City. Liverpool, like we said, Florian Wirtz finally became a done deal for Pong. Kirkus now, talk of Marcus Gaya from Crystal Palace. A lot of talk about Isaac was with Liverpool, but I just think it's not going to happen with the figures. Despite this, Andy, are you surprised? I mean, the player, from what I'm hearing, the player is open to a move, because Liverpool do not want to make $100 million move if the player has not given, he's willing to move. So as much as you want to say, yeah, it's not happening, are you surprised that Alexandra is open to moving, or is the Liverpool name too big?
No, well, no. Look, I really am still seeing the rumours floating around, Chubbs. And for me...
Yeah, but I'm saying when you get the top journalists like David Ortiz, Fabio Romano saying the same stuff, so they're always reliable. They're your, like, they're not Jack and Jill reporting. You know what I mean? They're like stealth. They know. Yeah. And when they're saying the player is open to the move, is that... I even heard Newcastle supporters ringing up Talk Sport, and it was mixed. Some of them were really to cash in. Some said no. It's even mixed feelings there, which I was a little bit surprised.
With the money that you're saying, and I've said this before, with the money that's being bandied around, your 150.
Because he has got an injury. There were Newcastle United supporters that did make out he has had a big injury. A lot of games he's missed as well.
He missed quite a few games this season because of injury.
And over his time at Newcastle.
And over his time in general at Newcastle, yeah. And that goes to show his goal record. It speaks for itself in terms of how many games he's played. But, Chubbs, for me personally, the amount of money that is bandied around for what a transfer fee is going to cost for him, like I said, £150 million plus, it would upset me, obviously, that he would leave, but I wouldn't be too hurt as I've been in the past, because it's huge money, and I think there'll be a lot of players coming the other way.
Because we know if Alexander Isak wasn't, you would have heard his agent come out saying, or the player, no, I'm happy at Newcastle, we've just made the Champions League.
He's come out and said that. He's come out and said that himself. He has come out and said that.
He has?
There's been social media of him participating in social media activities and all that sort of stuff. And he's basically come out and said it's the only club for him at this stage. But that means nothing, Chubbs. That means.
Well, are you a bit surprised on Arsenal TV's on meltdown, Arsenal fans on meltdown? No real big signing yet with Arsenal. What is happening there?
Well, I don't know. Well, they've signed Zubimendi, haven't they?
Well, that's not yet. Well, you're hearing medicals. It hasn't been confirmed yet. So Arsenal fans are not really happy with that. You would think that's probably done. I think Zubimendi definitely done, but that's not the position they need. We're hearing Party is going to be released. But it's a bit surprising when you see Man City already 6 players, Liverpool, and a lot of Arsenal fans saying we feel like they're already left behind, which in one way you can.
I think they're working on something big, Chubbs. I really do. Benjamin Sesko's
one name. How big could it be?
Well, for me, either Benjamin Sesko.
I mean, Anteke is right, but he's a young talent. He's 21 years old. He could be anything.
Top talent. Yeah. Yep. I think there's. Look, I don't think they're going to miss the boat again this time around. I really don't. But yeah, look, it's still early, Chubbs. There's a lot of water still to go under that bridge, mate. I think you'll find that they've definitely got a short list of players that they're interested in, and they'll try to find a way to get them to the club.
Your club, Newcastle, as we know, trying to close the gap, and probably out of all the clubs, like Chelsea, the most financially able to back. Have anything there happening?
I think the biggest player we're looking at this stage is João Pedro from Brighton. I think he's already told Brighton he won't be there next season. Very, very, very good player, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I think
very
he's a
good player.
fantastic player, attacking weapon, can score goals. But yeah, apart from that, I don't think there's too much other logs in a fire, so to speak, Charles. But I think it can happen very, very quickly. I know, like I've said before, I think we're in a very, very good financial position on the back of the sustainability rules and whatnot. I think they've managed to get themselves in a good position where they can finally buy.
Because another play from your club as well, is still a lot of talk about is Gordon, but I can't see Gordon leaving either.
Yeah, Gordon's another one. Look, as well for me, Chubbs, with the amount of money that we bought him for and potentially could sell him for, it would be disappointing. But I don't think we're a club now where we're just going to sell players and not have another. I think those days are gone. We're past that stage where we're a selling club. I think there's going to be a lot more activity, and I don't think they're going to roll over like they used to in the past for players like Anthony Gordon. I can't see that happening as well. But stranger things have happened, Chubbs. Anything can happen,
100%. Anyway, another great segment. It's always was a full-on show again. We thank Stealth Rallers. We had all the A-League, all the latest updates. Robbie Stanton, yourself, Andy, the MPL. It's been a huge jam-packed show. Thank you, everyone, for the effort. We'll put some videos up later tomorrow night.
Yeah, Chubbs, we just make sure we clip up, and I know you do, but that Robbie Stanton thing, this guy's
I'll clip it up. Unfortunately, I've just had a bit of time with my daughter in hospital, which cost me
when you're ready, mate. When you're ready,
I'll get to it, and we'll get them all up there. And we know the people want these videos, so they will get up there, and we'll be back next week, bigger and better.
Look forward to it. Thanks, Chubbs.
See you on the far post.
Good night.
Good night.